That morning, she turned the thermostat up a few degrees. Then she stood in the hallway and wept without quite understanding why. 40 years. For 40 years, the house had always been kept cold because he preferred it that way. She wore extra layers to bed, tucked the electric blanket out of sight because he disliked it, and somewhere along the way forgot that this had ever been a choice she made or never made at all. Day after day, that small adjustment repeated itself until it was no longer a sacrifice. It became habit, and habit, over time, became who she was. Then one day, the house was hers alone, and the first thing she noticed was not loneliness but warmth spreading slowly through her fingertips, a feeling so unfamiliar that she had to sit down in the middle of the hallway just to understand what was happening inside her own body. It was the first time in decades she had lived at her own temperature. Every morning before that, she had woken before the sun fully reached the kitchen window, moving through the house with the kind of quiet rhythm that had shaped her entire adult life. She prepared his medication before he asked for it, brewed the coffee exactly the way he liked it, and cleaned the kitchen while mentally organizing the rest of his day. After so many years, remembering his habits no longer felt like effort because caring for him had become woven into her identity itself. She never called it a sacrifice. She called it love. And for decades, she believed that was simply what marriage looked like when two people grew old together. But when the house finally went quiet, she began to look back. And what she found wasn't a simple answer about love or loneliness. It was 5 truths that many women only discover after an entire lifetime has already passed. Today, we're going to sit with those truths together. 1. Caregiving reflex. The moment terrified her because nobody had asked her to do anything. Daniel was kind in the way older men rarely are anymore. He listened carefully when she spoke, remembered how she liked her tea, and once drove across town just to bring her the lemon cookies she casually mentioned loving as a child. After years of widowhood, his gentleness felt almost shocking to her nervous system, and for the first time in a very long while, she allowed herself to wonder whether love after 60 might still hold something soft and beautiful. One afternoon, Daniel invited her to his apartment after lunch. They laughed together for hours, speaking slowly about old music, children, aging, and the strange feeling of watching the world move faster every year. At some point, he stepped onto the balcony to answer a phone call, leaving her alone in the kitchen for less than a minute. That was when she saw the sink. Several dishes had been sitting there for days, with dried coffee stains clinging to the mugs and crumbs scattered near the counter. Daniel never asked her to clean them. In fact, he would have probably stopped her if he noticed what she was doing. But her body had already begun moving before her thoughts caught up. Her hands reached toward the faucet automatically. Her eyes scanned the kitchen the same way they had scanned every kitchen she had stood inside for decades. In one silent second, she transformed from companion back into caretaker without even realizing it. And suddenly, she felt afraid. Not because of the dishes themselves, but because she understood something deeply uncomfortable about her own life. The instinct to care for men had become so deeply planted inside her body that it activated before she had time to choose whether she even wanted to help. Later that night, she sat at her dining table with a notebook and began writing 2 separate lists. On one side, she wrote down all the invisible things she used to do during her marriage every single day. Medication schedules, laundry, emotional reassurance, appointments, groceries, cleaning, remembering birthdays, monitoring moods, preventing arguments before they happened. The list filled an entire page. Then she made another list describing her current life: morning walks, reading novels, gardening, lunch with friends, quiet evenings, music, afternoon naps, painting classes she once postponed for years. This time, something felt different. Her name appeared everywhere. Many women do not lose themselves all at once inside a marriage. They disappear slowly through thousands of repeated acts of care, until eventually they cannot remember where service ends and identity begins. And once a woman finally notices that pattern, even something as small as an untouched sink can suddenly feel louder than words. 2. The loneliness myth. Most women are taught to fear one image more than anything else: growing old alone. For years, she carried that fear quietly inside her chest. She worried about slipping in the bathroom with nobody nearby, becoming sick without anyone noticing, or dying inside a silent house where days might pass before someone knocked on the door. Even after becoming comfortable living alone, those thoughts still appeared sometimes late at night, especially during storms or moments when the house felt too still. Then, one afternoon, her friend Gloria asked her a question that changed the way she understood loneliness forever. "Open your phone," Gloria said calmly over coffee. "Now count how many women would come if you called them at 2 in the morning." At first, the question sounded strange, but she began scrolling through her contacts anyway. Walking friends, church friends, a neighbor who always checked on her after doctor appointments, her younger sister, women from her old book club, a widow she met during grief counseling who still called every Sunday evening. The list kept growing, and slowly, she realized something almost embarrassing. She had spent years believing her safety depended entirely on having a man beside her, while completely overlooking the community of women already surrounding her life. A few months later, Gloria attended the funeral of her ex-husband. His current wife stood beside the flowers, holding the official title, the legal marriage, and decades of shared history. Yet behind her, there were very few people offering real emotional support. Gloria noticed something painful in that moment. Some women remain married for years, while their entire social world quietly disappears around them. Their friendships weaken, their independence shrinks, and eventually one relationship becomes the center holding everything together. But when that center collapses, there is nothing left underneath it. Women are often told to spend their lives searching for the right man. Far fewer are taught to build a life wide enough to hold them emotionally, even without one. And perhaps that is why some women feel surprisingly less lonely after divorce or widowhood than they ever did inside certain relationships. Before moving into the next realization, there is something worth asking gently here. If you needed comfort at 2 in the morning, who would truly show up for you today? Share your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes the answers reveal more about our lives than we expect. 3. Invisible compromise. She did not notice it until she was standing in a restaurant, holding the menu. The waiter had asked what she would like to order. A simple question, one she had answered thousands of times before. But for a long moment, she simply stood there because the first thought that came to her mind was not what she wanted. It was what he would have chosen. And whether the table they were sitting at would have been too noisy for him, or the lighting too bright, or the portions too small. He had been gone for nearly 2 years. And still, her first instinct in a restaurant was to order around someone else's preferences. That was the moment she began to understand how deep the invisible compromise had gone. Not in the dramatic arguments, not in the obvious sacrifices, but in the quiet, unremarkable moments, choosing a table, selecting a dish, lowering her voice in a room where another person's comfort had become the silent first condition of every decision she made. Little by little, she had simply adapted. At some point during the marriage, arguing over temperature started feeling more exhausting than enduring discomfort itself. So instead of continuing the conversation, she adjusted her body, her habits, and eventually even her sense of normal. Over time, compromise stopped feeling like a decision and began feeling like personality. The thermostat was only the beginning. As she looked back, she realized how many tiny parts of life had slowly rearranged themselves around another person. Restaurant choices, vacation schedules, bedtimes, television volume, holiday traditions. the placement of furniture, the timing of meals. Even the emotional atmosphere inside the house often depended on protecting someone else's comfort first. None of these sacrifices looked dramatic individually. That is why almost nobody talks about them. The most exhausting compromises inside long relationships are rarely the obvious ones. More often, they are the quiet adjustments repeated so many times that women stop noticing they are constantly shrinking themselves to maintain peace. And perhaps that is the dangerous part. Not controlling men, not loud conflict, but one-sided compromise continuing for so long that a woman eventually mistakes self-erasure for emotional maturity. Many women do not disappear from their own lives in a single painful moment. They disappear gradually through thousands of tiny sentences that sound harmless at the time. It's fine. Whatever you prefer. It's not worth arguing about. Years later, those small, surrendering moments can quietly accumulate into an entire identity built around accommodation instead of authenticity. And strangely enough, some women only recognize how uncomfortable they truly were once their own body finally relaxes in an empty room. 4. Financial sovereignty. The discovery happened inside an old filing cabinet she almost threw away. Several months after her husband passed, she finally gathered enough energy to sort through the paperwork he had managed for years. Insurance forms, tax folders, receipts, unopened mail, old warranties, the ordinary clutter accumulated across a long marriage. She expected the process to feel tedious and emotional, but not shocking. Then she found the credit card statements. There was no secret second family. No affair hidden in another city. No dramatic betrayal waiting to destroy the image of their marriage. In some ways, that almost made the experience harder to process. The charges were painfully ordinary. Purchases she never knew about. Accounts opened without discussion. Financial decisions quietly made by one person while both people carried the consequences together. And suddenly, she understood something she had never fully questioned before. Throughout the marriage, she had always explained every purchase, every bill, every financial concern, because she believed partnership meant transparency. Meanwhile, her husband had lived with an entirely different understanding of what marriage allowed him to keep private. Not maliciously, not unusually, simply normally. That realization unsettled her more than anger ever could. Later, one of her closest friends shared a similar story after divorcing in her 70s. Her ex-husband had accumulated debt she knew nothing about for years, and when the marriage ended, her own credit score collapsed, alongside his financial mistakes. It took nearly a decade for her to recover the stability she thought she already had. Stories like these are more common than many women admit publicly. For generations, women were encouraged to become emotional caretakers inside relationships, while remaining financially trusting at the same time. Many carried the stress of household stability without actually holding equal visibility into the decisions shaping that stability underneath. That is why financial peace in older age often feels surprisingly emotional. It is not really about becoming wealthy. It is about waking up one morning and realizing nobody else can secretly damage your security anymore. No hidden debt, no unexplained spending, no silent financial risks waiting in another drawer. There is a unique kind of calm that arrives when a woman finally knows the life she built cannot quietly be shaken by choices she never made herself. And for many women after 60, that calm begins feeling far more valuable than appearances, status, or even the comfort of saying they are not alone. 5. The body keeps score. Her shoulders began relaxing long before she understood why. A few years after living alone, she noticed small physical changes that seemed almost unrelated at first. She slept more deeply through the night. Her jaw stopped aching in the mornings because she no longer ground her teeth in her sleep. Even her blood pressure slowly improved without any major lifestyle changes. During one therapy appointment for chronic neck pain, the the specialist quietly told her something she never forgot. "Your body," he said gently, "is finally stopping its preparation for something." At first, the sentence confused her, but later that evening, sitting alone in the quiet of her living room, she suddenly understood exactly what he meant. For decades, her nervous system had been trained to monitor another person constantly. She listened to the sound of the front door opening to predict her husband's mood before he even spoke. She adjusted her tone carefully during certain conversations, watched facial expressions closely, and kept part of herself emotionally alert almost every hour of the day. Not because she was abused, not because her marriage was terrible, but because many women are taught from a young age that maintaining emotional balance inside a relationship is partly their responsibility. And the body never fully forgets that pressure. Some women think they are simply tired as they grow older, when in reality their bodies have spent decades remaining emotionally braced for other people, constantly accommodating, constantly reading the room, constantly preparing for needs, tension, disappointment, or emotional reactions before they even arrive. Once she began living alone, her body slowly stopped guarding itself all the time. Her shoulders lowered naturally, her breathing deepened. Even her posture changed because the invisible tension inside her muscles no longer held the same weight. The mind can normalize almost anything over time. The body cannot. And perhaps that is why peace, after 60, sometimes feels so physical, because certain women are not only resting emotionally for the first time in years, their bodies are finally resting too. Before we close, many viewers may quietly relate to this in ways they never expected. Have you ever noticed your body becoming calmer, lighter, or more relaxed after leaving a stressful relationship or simply living alone? Share your experience in the comments, because your story may help someone else feel less alone in theirs. This video was never meant to argue against love, marriage, or companionship after 60. It was simply an invitation to look honestly at the life you have built and gently ask yourself a difficult question. Many women were never encouraged to ask earlier. How much of your day revolves around caring for other people's comfort? How many decisions, habits, emotions, and routines quietly orbit someone else's needs before your own? And somewhere inside all those responsibilities and acts of love, does your own name still appear clearly? If it does, hold tightly to that relationship and continue building it with gratitude. But if it does not, if you have spent so many years adapting that you no longer remember what brings you peace, joy, curiosity, or rest, then perhaps what is missing from your life is not another relationship at all. Perhaps it is yourself. Because some women spend decades living for others before finally meeting themselves for the very first time. And sometimes, that reunion becomes the most peaceful love story of all.